We undertook a very interesting study in one organization that had really won CSR prizes globally. It was in the food industry. And they were distinctly CSR conscious at top level. And I honestly believe that top management thought they were being very socially and morally conscious. So we began to take just one product, and it happened to be vanilla. The stuff that goes in ice cream, the stuff that goes for cooking. Now, vanilla is a very delicate plant. I suspect in many ways it's almost like tobacco. It has to be cured and cared for. Now, at the top level, there was a lot of attention to CSR policy and strategy and how socially conscious the company was. Then we went to divisional level, and most of the divisional managers at least knew of the policies. And I think the majority also knew that there was some sort of CSR training program. It was online. So we went to the next level down, and most people didn't even know there was a training program, but they did know there was something about CSR, but they couldn't quite put their finger on it. So then we start going to the country level, and we visited countries like Mozambique and Uganda. And what did we find? We found a large number of small farms, often family run, barely able to make a living, all striving very hard to please and meet the company's needs. And those farmers were basically below poverty line. And in order to make the family function well, many of the children were also working, so there was a child labor issue. Now, who was driving them? The curers, the purchasers. So you would have a native African being driven by a native African. And the native African who was driving the farmer was working on behalf of the company. And what was their prime concern? Cost. We have to get this plant cheaper, quicker than any other competitor. And they pushed the farmers hard. Now, some of the farmers and curers got together, and at one of the conferences in Europe, there was a bit of a rebellion. And the company didn't take it too well. And those individuals basically got no say. Now, from the company's point of view, they didn't tell the locals one of the problems that they had. They also had a problem with costs, because their concern was you have a large number of small holdings, and that's a very inefficient operation to have. So why not move the whole operation to places like India, where you would have large holdings, but the soil isn't as good? But you can manure the soil in such a way that at least you will get a decent plant. So on the one hand, we have CSR policy at the top, I believe sincerely meant. As you trace it down the structure, you get to a point where people even haven't heard of the policy, don't even know that there could be penalties, and in this company there were no penalties for pursuing CSR, and certainly never heard of any training program. The whole push, when it got down to African country level, was you had one native African pushing another native African, unfortunately, into greater poverty. And if the children had not worked on those farms, there would be even greater poverty. So ironically here, child labor in the short term had some sort of positive gain. Now, when we went to some of the community heads and politicians of that country, what was their prime strategy? It was to keep the company happy at any cost, because they had to have that employment. So what was learned there? There was no follow-through. There was no real commitment from that company to understand the investment necessary to take a plant that's already fragile, prepare it for the market, but then have a responsibility of practice in the communities that improves people's standard of living. Follow-through is a discipline. It's boring, it's tedious, it's attention to detail, and most of all, it's bringing detailed numbers and realities to the surface so that top management can get a picture of what happens day by day. Most follow-throughs in the financial area, you're required to make them happen. There is no legal or principal compunction at this moment in time to have CSR reporting on the same basis as financial reporting. Now, I suspect if that does not occur, the follow-through on CSR will at best be loose.